Dear survivors of the Auschwitz concentration camp, guardians of memory, dear friends of the movement of life from all over the world, I gave my talk the title Movement of Life, Foundation of a New World. And I'm dedicating this talk to August Kowalczyk, the prisoner of the Auschwitz concentration camp who brought us together many years ago. August is no longer with us, but we all know that he's right here, right at this very moment. Auschwitz is a holy place on this planet. It is holy for the millions of people who lost their lives here. It is holy because you, the survivors of the mass murder committed here, and we, representatives of the next generations, are united in one common goal: never again. Auschwitz is holy too, because it is right here that this and all future generations of mankind will find the decisive answers to the question of why. Why did these horrible crimes happen? Why do global wars happen? What are the principal interests that prevent us, the people of the world today, from living in a peaceful planet? The answers to these questions affect the life of us today and of all future generations. And these answers, they lie right here in Auschwitz. Auschwitz was not only the site of the most infamous Nazi concentration camp. The same city was the site of the largest industrial plant in World War II Europe, IG Auschwitz. A 100% subsidiary of IG Farben, the infamous cartel formed by the German chemical and pharmaceutical multinationals Bayer, BASF and Hoechst. The fact that the concentration camp and this 24 square mile corporation were located only a few miles apart were no coincidence. It was the giant demand for slave labor for this chemical plant that turned the small concentration camp Auschwitz I into a mass extermination camp. Once equipped with the death machinery to dispose of worn-out slave laborers, the KZ became an extermination site for the mass murder of the Jewish people, but also of Slavic and other non-Aryan people, as well as prisoners of war from Russia and just about any other conquered country of Europe. The post-World War II Nuremberg Tribunal against IG Farben cartel revealed that these corporations were not only responsible for turning Auschwitz into a mass extermination camp. The court records from Nuremberg also established that without the financial, technological and logistical support of the German chemical industry, World War II would simply not have taken place. In fact, this industry commissioned this terrible war with the goal to dominate the economic markets that would determine the rulers of the world for decades to come. The markets of patented chemical and pharmaceutical products. The goal of global conquest and the brutal ways to achieve these goals at the expense of millions of lives were fully shared by the Nazis and the cartel. The US prosecutor in the Nuremberg Tribunal called it a coalition and even a marriage between the Nazis and IG Farben. In fact, only if we understand the fact that world wars are primarily driven by economic interests, only if we accept the fact that there are corporate interests so large that they are willing to sacrifice the lives of millions of people in order to conquer the world. Only then will we be able to prevent future wars. Thus, I'm stating here today, the clue to the survival of mankind lies right here in Auschwitz. The place on earth where the death of millions in the concentration camp is eternally linked to IG Auschwitz, the embodiment of corporate interests putting profits over life. After the end of World War II, the heirs of IG Farben spent billions to destroy the evidence and to keep their criminal record out of the history books. For one reason only. So the very same corporate interests could launch yet another attempt at world conquest. Not surprisingly, the official records of the Nuremberg War Crimes Tribunal against IG Farben were hidden away from the eyes of 3 generations in remote archives for more than 7 decades. In summer of 2007, our foundation decided to end this cover-up of the chemical cartel's criminal history and publish more than 40,000 pages of the official records of these tribunals for everyone to see, anywhere in the world. The cover-up of the economic roots of World War II and the crimes against humanity committed in the interest of corporate greed was over. A few months later, in November 2007, our foundation received the Relay of Life Award from you, the survivors of the KZ Auschwitz and other Nazi concentration camp, right here in this hall. Because of the moral and ethical weight you, the survivors, carry, this is one of the most prestigious awards anywhere in the world. After the award ceremony that day, August Kowalczyk asked us, "What are you going to do with this award?" I responded that one day there will be a movement of life that will take the historic lessons from Auschwitz to build a better world. This movement will, above all, be carried by young people for whom this knowledge is motivation and guidance at the same time. Today, we met here in Auschwitz and presented to you, the survivors of the concentration camp Auschwitz, the first steps of this movement of life. It is a beginning. But we pledge to you that we will not give up until we have reached our goals to secure as fundamental human rights the right to life, the right to health, the right to healthy food free of genetically altered organisms, the right to clean water, to renewable energy, and to comprehensive independent education. And we promise you to come back every year to give account to you about our progress. And each year we will be joined by more young people and allow them the privilege of meeting you and being inspired by your examples. As for my part, the reason why I'm standing here today is the fact that during my lifetime as a scientist, I was privileged to make contributions to the field of science and medicine that promise to significantly reduce, if not eliminate, today's most common diseases, including cardiovascular disease and cancer. These scientific breakthroughs that could save millions of lives were not welcomed by the status quo. Over the past decades, the pharmaceutical lobbyists in medicine, media and politics have launched more than 100 lawsuits against our research with one goal only: to sabotage these breakthroughs in order to prevent their multi-trillion dollar or multi-billion euro business with patented drugs that is dependent on the continuation of diseases as markets. The corporate interest groups, the chemical and pharmaceutical industry that have been responsible for the crimes against humanity committed in Auschwitz decades ago, these are the very same corporate interests that are again risking the lives of millions of people by preventing them from receiving life-saving information about the scientifically proven health benefits of natural health approaches. The very same corporate interests. One evening during our 10-year-long relationship, I asked August Kowalczyk over dinner, "August, what is the bond between your life and mine? What is the essence of our connection?" His answer was very short: IG Farm. And he added, "But your battle today is more difficult than ours then." I was shocked. Here was a man who escaped the concentration camp Auschwitz, where millions of people had been murdered, describing our task today as more difficult than his or yours during World War II. Of course, I asked him, "What makes you say that?" He answered, "We could see our opponents. You can't, because they have learned to hide." I will never forget this conversation. And it is precisely for that reason that an important goal of the movement of life is to expose those corporate interests that continue to sacrifice the life of millions of people for corporate greed. The movement of life is the only alternative if we don't want to allow the cartel to take over our planet and enslave it for generations to come. Developing superior alternatives to chemical drugs, to fossil energy, and other outdated technological monopolies of the cartel, breaking the silence and spreading this information across our planet will liberate this planet from the yoke of the cartel. And the cartel stakeholders, they know that their time is running out. In the field of healthcare, if they allow the breakthroughs in natural health and cellular medicine replace their synthetic drugs, the cartel loses long-term revenues in the magnitude of hundreds of trillions of dollars or hundreds of billions of euros. The same is true if they let alternative energy replace their monopoly on fossil and nuclear energy. From a historical analysis, the cartel today is defending nothing less than its right to exist and to rule the world. Only if we have worked ourselves through to this analysis will we be able to realize the dimension of deceit and outright lies we are currently faced with. To give you a few examples, the stakeholders of the cartel in politics and media are lying to us about the nature of the so-called Brussels EU, by telling us that this construct is a democratic body. The truth is, however, the European Parliament lacks the basic right of any democratic institution. It has no right to initiate legislation, and it functions as a fig leaf for the true nature of the Brussels EU, a corporate dictatorship. They are lying to us when they lure us into participating in EU elections, pretending that with our vote we determine the president of the so-called EU Commission, making us believe that we can actually vote for the head of the government of Europe. The truth, however, is that this so-called commission is composed of 28 members who share equal rights, and that the remaining 27 are appointed by the cartel. And they must cast their votes unanimously. And since that is the case, there's one man we can vote on, doesn't actually count at all. And we can be assured that the corporate dictatorship of the cartel over Europe is certain to continue, rendering any election for the Brussels EU a farce and any participation in it an insult to the preservation of democracy. They lie to us about the purpose of the so-called free trade agreements by which the political stakeholders of the cartel in Brussels are luring the countries of the world into a trap. These agreements, whether with Latin America, Asia, Africa, or the so-called transatlantic free trade agreement with the US, are Trojan horses. They eliminate any democratic control, bypass parliaments and courts, and establish for the Brussels cartel stakeholders a permanent seat inside the government of just about any nation of the world, irrespective of the democratic vote of the people of that country. They are lying to us that these so-called free trade agreements are about creating jobs and bringing prosperity to the people. The truth is, however, that these agreements serve nothing else than the geographical expansion of protectionist laws and regulations with the sole goal to expand the rule of the cartel over the people of our planet in such vital areas as health, food, energy, and other multi-trillion markets. According to these plans, any attempt of democratic intervention against such corporate control of society would be decided by private courts with corporate judges and outside any democratic control. Thus, we have to come to realize that whenever they use the word democracy, they lie. Outdated technologies like chemical drugs, genetically modified food, and fossil energies cannot survive in a democracy because the people of the world are already turning their backs on these outdated technologies in masses. We have to realize the louder the political stakeholders of the cartel in politics and the media bombard us with the words democracy and freedom, the more aggressively they are already working behind the scenes on eliminating all democratic rights and on establishing a global corporate dictatorship to economically and politically enslave the people of the world for generations to come. They are lying to us that they need to read our emails, listen to our phone conversations, track every movement we make in order to fight terrorism. Yet, the only purpose for this unlimited data collection and for the million-fold breach of privacy is because they are afraid of us. The people waking up and replacing the economic tools by which they control us and terminating their dictatorial rule over us. That's what they are afraid of. Not surprisingly, this global spying operation is orchestrated by the governments of those few nations controlling 2/3 of the export of chemical, pharmaceutical and other cartel merchandise, namely the USA, the United Kingdom, Germany, France. This too tells us how afraid and how weak they really are. And they lie to us when they tell us that they must launch a new Cold War with Russia in order to defend democracy in the West. Fact is, They are deliberately escalating this and other crises and actively preparing for war as a last resort. If all other plans to protect their outdated multi-trillion-dollar markets failed, the cartel is prepared to launch a major war via its military arm, NATO, with the effect that they could instantly rule this planet by martial laws, and there should be no mistake. The interests at stake are so huge that the cartel stakeholders are prepared to risk their own demise, including in a nuclear holocaust, before giving up their privileges. The only answer to this precarious situation is to unmask these plans and to make the people of the world look behind the cartel's curtain of deception. Because it is only if we reveal their plans and publicize them before they can act that we can prevent yet another major war. That is the goal of my speech today. And precisely that is the goal of the movement of life. Thus, in its very center, in its very core, the movement of life is a peace movement. For if mankind is unable to preserve world peace in the nuclear age, everything else becomes irrelevant. If we have any doubts about the transitional times we live in today, we only need to go back in history 400 years, when the feudal rulers of Europe wanted to preserve their medieval privileges by launching the infamous War of 30 Years that destroyed and depopulated 1/3 of the European continent. To no avail. Because nothing could prevent the advent of modern times, once the people had set their minds to making the advances in science, commerce, culture a reality, and above all, the political shift from autocracy to democracy. The parallels of then to today are breathtaking. Today we too live in a time that marked the last stage of an old regime that, similar to the feudal dictators, tries to rule this planet by means of a corporate dictatorship. And something else. The key weapon we have in this largest liberation movement, the largest liberation movement of all time, is not military in nature. It is education of ourselves and of our fellow citizens. The first educational measure to win this battle and to guide mankind peacefully through this precarious transition in history is to spread the message about the weakness of the cartel and about our strength. That is the purpose of the movement of life too. Then and now, the rewards for mankind to liberate itself from an outdated economic rule is breathtaking. Let's have a look ahead into the year 2030. The world around us has dramatically changed by then. The knowledge about the significant health benefits of vitamins and other plant ingredients has empowered millions of people around the world to prevent and control diseases that have been considered untreatable before. Most of the diseases that have haunted mankind for centuries are on a rapid decline. In some areas of the world, heart attacks and strokes, once leading the statistics of diseases and deaths, have become the exception. Cancers, once an almost certain death verdict, have become treatable health conditions and are considered no more dangerous than the flu. The successful prevention of widespread diseases has reduced the multi-trillion-dollar pharmaceutical investment business with disease to a fraction of its level in 2014. The almost $50 trillion the pharmaceutical investment business had announced to rake in by the year 2030 were safe and have become available to fight major problems of mankind. In the industrial countries, trillions have become available to fight unemployment, poverty, environmental pollution, and many other challenges. In the developing world, trillions have become available to fight hunger by establishing community gardens and safe water supply. Analphabetism and illiteracy have been eliminated on our planet through the establishment of schools in every community, in every country. The average life expectancy on our planet has risen to over 100 years, and people are growing older generally at full physical and mental health. Public health care is driven by research in science-based natural health, and all health care is delivered free of charge. 100% of the households, factories and cars run on renewable energy and are free of charge. There is full employment in most nations of the world for those who can work. Those who are disabled are supported by a comprehensive social care system. And the financial resources for these advantages were made possible by the fact that the public and private financial drain to the cartel industries were stopped and trillions of dollars were redirected. The construct of the Brussels EU had collapsed under its own lies, and the political and other cartel stakeholders had been tried in a large public tribunal similar to the Nuremberg Tribunal. Many members of the so-called EU Commission, together with corporate executives and other cartel stakeholders, are serving long-term jail sentences for the crimes committed against the people of Europe and the people of the world. The nations of Europe have retained their independence, and their national cultures are being put under special protection. The European-wide affairs like science-based natural health research in the fight against diseases, the supply of renewable energies, and others are being delegated to a European Parliament. But unlike the present construct of the Brussels EU, the new European government is fully democratically legitimized by the people and acts for the people. This new European government is located in the Polish city of Auschwitz. For it is right here that a new generation of people has vowed to take the lessons of history and make sure that the call never again has become the platform for a better world. By 2030, the new democratic government of a Europe by the people and for the people has already become a beacon of hope for other parts of the world. It has been instrumental in launching programs to end centuries of exploitation and dependency, and finally closing the economic gap between rich and poor nations. And we, those of us who will be there, will look back in the year 2030 and reflect on those 2 decades that have passed. We will notice that over all those years of historic change, when mankind decided to turn away from the abyss of eternal corporate dictatorship and embrace a future of dignity, true democracy, and lasting peace, one organization has been the driving force: our movement of life. The only obstacle that stands between us today and that glorious moment in the future are the confines of our own minds and the hesitations of our own hearts. But together we will accomplish this courageous goal. Therefore, from the city of Auschwitz today, we call on the youth of the world to join us in building the largest liberation movement of all time, the movement of life. Thank you.